G'day guys, welcome back to the show. I've noticed a trend in my videos, and that is that I've been doing the same method since I began. And that's my working method that I would usually use on client work, but it's not how I always work on my personal work. Because it always results in images that look kind of the same. Like the style is very similar, because you're using the same steps every time. So with this one, I wanted to try something a little different, a little bit more experimental. It's still relatively similar, but you may notice if you look at my portfolio of work that I have some pretty crazy colors going on in some of my art. And I don't just come up with those colors off the top of my head. That is the result of a lot of trial and error and experimentation with layer modes and things like that, and just sort of going a bit wild. So I decided that I would try that while recording, which is a scary thing to do because it looks like I have no idea what I'm doing. And I guess I don't, right? It's about discovering the colors and the mood as you go along, which is sometimes a scary way to work, because you really don't know if things are going to come together. But I don't want to give you the wrong impression. I never start a drawing without some kind of plan, okay? And even if I'm going to mess around and experiment, I want the story to be there. I want to be informed about what decisions I can make, because I need to work within some kind of structure that I've set myself. So the idea for the drawing was a dryad. They're forest spirits. So they live in trees, they can move through trees, they sort of speak to the health of the forest, they're there to protect the forest, they can talk with the trees and the animals and things, kind of like a voice for the forest as a whole, I imagine them. I don't know if there's actual dryad lore out there, they're obviously fictional creatures, so I just start writing down words that I associate with dryads. And once you write down the first few things like forest, trees, wildlife, they speak to the trees, they care about the forest's health, you start to then riff off those initial concepts into things that you think of related to those concepts. So when I thought of they care about the health of the forest, they're beautiful, like the forest, I started thinking in terms of, okay, the forest is beautiful. I love going out to the wilderness and looking at it. But if I was to have to live there, it doesn't give a shit about me. It is going to kill me and use me as fertilizer. It's a savage place, right? So I wanted this creature that looks beautiful, fragile, and kind, but with this alien quality that kind of says, you're fertilizer to me. Like your concerns don't resonate with me. I'm thinking about different things. I am dangerous and beautiful and charming. So I'm kind of going for this whimsical thing with this creep factor. And I guess also a feeling of sorrow, sadness, because I don't think there's a forest on Earth at the moment that doesn't feel sad. Oh God, way to kill the mood. Sorry guys, I'm going to try and bring this back up. I also chose a motif of butterflies. So I recently went to Argentina for my honeymoon, and we went to the Amazon rainforest, and they were saying that the number of butterflies, and there are quite a few, which is promising, the number of butterflies and the variety of butterflies speaks to the health of the rainforest. They're very fragile, I think, and if anything gets disturbed, it really impacts their numbers. So I wanted a few butterflies, and I would imagine that they kind of flap around in the forest, and the dryad kind of talks to them and tries to get an idea of the health of the forest and tries to protect it that way. So glowing butterflies, of course, because everything in my art glows. And from there, we begin, and I started sketching, and I didn't want to do the tight line art and then add in all the local colors and do all that sort of stuff. Well, I still did the local colors and added shadows and things because you have to do that, but I did it in a far less structured way this time. No tight line art. I wanted things to look messy so that I didn't feel bad breaking it. Now, if any of you have watched Bob Ross, he speaks about happy little accidents. We don't make mistakes, just happy little accidents. This working method is almost entirely reliant upon stumbling across happy accidents. You want to just go for it and then hope that you can pull things together over time, because it's going to look messy and garbage for a really long time. You just have to keep on going. You want enough color information and temperature variation and stuff within your colors so that you can play with hue and saturation, channel mixer, color balance, and all these different layers, and masking in and out different areas, throwing down complementary colors with brush strokes, just doing a lot of crazy stuff, enough variation that you can sometimes stumble across accidentally some kind of really interesting color harmonies that you wouldn't have thought to do had you just picked colors from the color wheel and tried to stick to a really structured color palette. And it leads you off into some very strange directions. I've got a painting of a pink castle in my portfolio and everybody loves it. It's my most popular piece when I take it to conventions. People really like it. And I would not have thought to paint a pink castle had I sat down and made a plan. So this kind of experimentation, I think, it's important for development, because sometimes you don't know what you think looks good. You know what you think looks good done by other people. You'll see other artists producing work and you'll think, oh, that's awesome, I want to try and do something similar to that. But then you try and produce something like that, which you should do, but it's not going to turn out as good. But you might be adding limitations to your work. If you start and just throw down a bunch of colors and just keep going and messing with it and trying to break it in interesting ways, you'll eventually just find something that you think looks good with the colors. You go, something about this is satisfying to my eye. And when you stumble across it, it's not going to be in a perfect final state. It's going to be very rough, and you have to then massage it and try and work towards those colors. And then at some point, break it again and just keep doing it. You just keep trying to mess with it, and you'll get led into some very interesting territory. And if you do this semi-regularly, I wouldn't recommend doing this kind of thing every single time, because it does waste a little bit of time here and there, and it's really not training you to have a plan, which is super important if you want to be a professional. But if you do this stuff occasionally, you'll be surprised, or at least I was surprised when I did it, that I started thinking about things like, maybe I want my castle to be pink. You know, sometimes I find myself just intuitively desiring some sort of wacky color somewhere that I would probably not have thought of from just looking at life or other people's work. I start just putting in a crazy color, and because I know that sometimes that works, right? And it's informed my style quite a lot over time. People always tell me that they like the crazy colors that I put in. I kind of fought against it for a while because I saw other people's work and it had very natural, harmonious colors, very bright and playful. And I admire what they do so much that I want to have that in my work. But then I'm kind of thinking over time that perhaps I'm missing the thing that people admire in my work, and that maybe I should just head towards that. It's such a weird journey, this art thing, right? It's so hard to maintain a strong identity when there's so much beautiful work out there that you just keep on getting inspired by so much stuff, and you need to be inspired by it. But at the same time, you need to also stick to your roots a little bit or find your own path. And that's really hard to do, to find something that looks different today, because there's just so much out there. Listening to your own personal voice can become more and more difficult the further you go along, and the better your skills become. The more you can emulate other artists, you can sometimes reach a point where your voice starts to get lost. And so you have to find methods of speaking with it again, finding it. It's not easy. There are just so many possibilities with art when you sit down to draw something. You've got a white canvas, do whatever you want. And when there's so many voices out there saying beautiful things, right? Like there's beautiful, beautiful work everywhere. It's hard not to want to just do what everyone else is doing. So you need to find a method of getting in touch with what you want to say. And this is one of the methods that I use. Experimentation, breaking the mold, trying to force your intuition to make the decisions for you by going against what you think you should do. Trying to find something new that you like, something that you've not necessarily done before. I've not really figured out a consistent way of doing that with the idea generation process yet. I don't know if there is a way. Honestly, I think delving a little deeper into the ideas is just good practice. Sometimes an idea comes to your mind and you just really feel inspired to do it, and you should follow your nose when that happens. But yeah, I don't know. Ideas are important, and you should dig as deep as possible on them to give you as many ideas as possible for the piece. But colors can change. The mood, you can find some really weird moods if you do stuff like this. As long as you don't get too caught up with things looking how they should academically, all that business. Just let the mood and the colors and the feeling of the piece kind of drive you. Intuition. Let your intuition speak. It's tough. It's tough. But it can be a heap of fun, and it can be liberating, and you can end up with a piece that just blows your mind because you weren't expecting it, right? You didn't plan for this. What is this thing? It's sitting in your portfolio that just looks crazy. I love that feeling of having something there that feels like something that you're incapable of producing. It's on that edge. It's just a little bit further than what you could achieve if you set out with a strong plan, right? You're never going to achieve that kind of excitement out of a piece if you try and follow a structure. The structure is to achieve something that is at your limits, right? But within the realm of possibility for you, that you can achieve that every time. You need that structure to be a professional. But when you're doing some personal work, you want to push yourself just that little bit further outside your comfort zone sometimes. Not all the time, but sometimes. You want to be somewhere uncomfortable. There's a good David Bowie quote. I can't remember it verbatim, but it was something like, push yourself to the limit where you feel uncomfortable, and then take another step. And when you're in that space, you're in a place where you can make something exciting. It was something along those lines. You need to be unsure of whether you're doing the right thing. You need to be looking at this piece and thinking, I don't know about this. I don't know if this is going to resonate with anybody. But if you like it, if there's something that you see in it and you can push that into that direction, even if you think you put it on Instagram, it'll bomb and no one will care. If it makes you feel slightly insecure, it has a higher chance of just being something awesome that actually really connects with someone because it's different, right? I think that's what Bowie was getting at. You need to ride that line of potential disaster and failure if you want to create something that is really impactful. Because everything that is really loved in the world is also hated by other people, right? If you look at any review on Amazon for any of the greatest books of all time, the greatest music of all time, it's going to have a ton of 5-star reviews and a bunch of 1-star reviews, right? People loving it and hating it. Because if you're not riding that line and pushing that thing that little bit further, then you're not making something worth loving. So challenge yourself. Do something different. Go out there and make something worth hating. Thank you so much for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. Hit that like button, subscribe, drop a comment down below. I'll get back to it as soon as I can. I want to give a special thanks to all of my wonderful patrons. You are, without a doubt, the best people in the world. This week, I'm going to end with a question, because I have a tendency of making absolute statements that maybe aren't so absolute, and often they deserve a discussion. So I'll throw it to you. Does modern art deserve to be loved? It certainly deserves to be hated, but are they putting in enough effort to be loved? Is it art? Is it worth anything? Let me know what you think down below, and I'll speak to you guys again next week.